Today's project is purely for fun, and it's actually perfect if you're looking to practice your DIY skills. I promise the squirrels won't mind if the picnic table isn't perfect. A big thank you to Hoover for sponsoring this video and supporting this channel. I came across this cuteness on Facebook, and I had no idea that squirrel picnic tables were a thing. But after a quick Google search, I saw that there were definitely a lot of them out there. I had to make one for myself and introduce the squirrels of Griffith Park to this new dining experience. I loosely followed these free plans from Charleston Crafted, which I'll link in the description below. After doing some rummaging through all of my wood scraps, I was able to piece together the top with 1x3s and 1x2 pine boards. I already had one board that was a good length for the top, so I cut the other boards to match. When I started using a handsaw a few years ago, I wasn't very good at making straight cuts, so I used a miter box as a guide. I actually ended up getting a miter box and saw kit like this one, which I'll link in the video description below. I'm currently working on a book where I will go into a lot more detail about all the tools that I use, how I managed to build everything in my dining room, and it's going to include a ton of practical and useful information for people that are new to DIY and want to know the basics to get started. I'm actually sharing some of the book writing process on my Patreon account, so I'll put a link to that in the video description below in case that's of interest. To attach the boards together, I use square wood dowels. And the 2 screws that you see on the side of each of the dowels are there because I'll be using them to attach the legs to the top a little bit later. I had to cut a 30-degree parallel miter on each of the 4 legs. To mark the 30-degree angle that I needed, I placed the speed square at the edge of the board and then rotated it around the pivot point until the 30-degree mark lined up with the side of the board. Of course, hand sawing isn't quite as fast or precise as using a miter saw, but it still gets the job done, albeit a messy one. Which brings me to the sponsor of this video, Hoover. They reached out to me to try out their cordless Evolve Pet vacuum. It's lightweight and compact, which was important to me because I live in a small apartment. Since I also have carpet and vinyl floors in my apartment, I like that I can adjust the settings of this vacuum depending on where I'm vacuuming. The carpet mode does a great job of sucking up all the dirt and fur from Leah. She's cute, but she sure is a shedding machine. I love how this vacuum can easily go from carpet to vinyl floors by just switching modes. And it handles my sawdust messes on vinyl floors equally well as pet fur on the carpet. It's also very nimble and handles really well around all the furniture obstacles. The dirt cup is very large, so I love that I can go a very long time vacuuming everywhere without having to empty it. One unique feature of this vacuum that's especially great if you have pets is that it has an antimicrobial brush roll and pet odor filter that prevent growth of odor-causing bacteria in the vacuum. The battery pack gives me over 35 minutes of vacuuming. And I really like the fact that the battery pack is also removable, so I don't have to charge it where I store the vacuum. All in all, I think that this is a great little vacuum that's powerful enough to handle both pet and project messes. If you're interested in finding out more about the Evolve Pet Hoover vacuum, I'll put a link in the video description below. Again, a big thank you to Hoover for sending me this vacuum to try and for sponsoring this video. Now back to the picnic table. It's a bit tricky to line up the legs to make sure that they're perfectly straight, so I use the edge of the table to do that and a piece of wood, plus a ruler also is helpful to center the leg brace. I'm using Spax exterior screws for this project because they're made for things that go outside, and also because they're self-drilling, there's no need to make pilot holes, which makes putting things together go a lot faster. Now I had all the parts that I needed to put together my picnic table. However, before assembling it, I decided to add some dark brown stain accents. Using a dark stain like this is great for hiding imperfections and all the random holes that were in the scrap wood that I used. I could have filled in the holes with wood filler, but I think the squirrels will be okay with this. The stain came out a bit darker than I wanted, so I sanded the entire table to tone it down. I could have stopped here, but I wanted to make this a really fancy squirrel table, so I added some decorative paper to the seats and the top with some Mod Podge. This table turned out so cute, and I couldn't wait to find out if the squirrels were actually going to like it. For the first fancy squirrel mission, I served pistachio nuts and I put the table on the ground, but no takers. I figured that maybe putting the table on a tree trunk would be better, and using a ratchet strap was my solution to do it without making any holes in the trees. It took a couple of tries, but the squirrels of Griffith Park finally came out of the woodwork. Maybe it was just a better location, but regardless, on that day, the squirrels were very interested. Most of them weren't fancy enough to use the table though. There were so many that just snooped around. They weren't quite sure what to do with this table. And eventually, after a bit, I finally got one fancy squirrel customer. He wasn't that well-mannered. He sat on the pistachio nuts, but he really liked the walnuts. I had so much fun with this silly project, and hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I did. All the links to the things that I mentioned in this video will be in the description below, including links to my Patreon account and my Instagram, where I share what I'm up to day to day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.